Hi, everyone, and welcome to Off the Record, the sports podcast of breaking news, hard opinion, and a little bit of gibber. I'm Andrew Webster from The Australian. I'm joined by my partner in crime, Phil Rothfield from the Daily Telly. G'day, Buzz.
Hello, Webby. How are you?
Good. We are buzzing after a very, well, how do we put it? It was fun but also emotional podcast with our mate Braithen Astor.
Yeah, great fella, and my goodness, what a great chat.
Yeah, incredible. So that's going to drop in.
Hasn't he done some stuff with his life, and he's at the top of his game as host of the flagship show on Fox, and wow, what a story.
It is. It's a podcast worth listening to. It'll drop later this week. Coming up on the show today, Buzz has got some massive news on who is likely to replace Mal Meninga as coach of Australia. We're going to talk about the Broncos being in crisis, rugby's fake news about Nathan Cleary. We're also going to talk about drugs. And Buzz enlightened us with the time he successfully sued Peter Sterling.
Bought a boat. Called it Sterlo. More to come.
Hook and tease. I tell you what we won't be talking about. Lachlan Galvin. It's a Galvin-free zone
Is
today.
It? Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I'm sick of it.
Yeah, I've just about had enough.
I think the fans out there are too.
Yeah, me too.
I tell you, we're not going to read any bullshit. Code Sports. So if you want an annual subscription to Australia's best sports website for just $49, you can go to codesports.com.au/OTR and you get a special discount on your annual Code Sports subscription. Buzz, we haven't spoken since Origin.
Yeah.
Let's just touch on it very briefly. What are your thoughts?
Well, I was going to make Origin my chump.
Oh, right.
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm going to give you my chump to start off with.
Why don't we start with your chump?
My champ?
We'll go with your chump, or we'll go champ second.
Yeah. Well, I've got Origin down as my chump because I just think it lacks something.
It did, didn't it? It felt like a club game.
Yeah, no,
a glorified club game.
I took a few days off last week, and I watched on television without a laptop, not working, just sitting there to consume Origin. And I thought New South Wales played to 75% of their potential, and I think Queensland were hopeless.
Yeah.
They were really, really poor, and the game lacked something. I tell you what convinced me. You get the NRL email the next day with judiciary. There wasn't a charge.
No.
So we had – does that tell you something? That no one did anything illegal?
Outrageous?
Yeah. No
or
one.
Too scared to?
Yeah.
I thought –
And it's not Origin when Ashley Klein won't let the game flow and blow 15 penalties.
Ridiculous.
Having said that, the ratings were sensational.
Yeah.
But Webby, it just was not one of my favourite games. And I hope Perth's better, and I hope Queensland turn up in a better condition than they were this time.
I'm sure they will. It was flat in the second half. It sort of had a bit of inevitability about it, that Origin, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. And it did. And, they're talking about dropping Cherry Evans.
I don't think they will.
Oh, geez, the male's strong, Webby.
That they will?
Yeah, the male's very, very strong.
Well,
I know he had a blinder on Saturday night and at Brookie. I wouldn't necessarily drop him, but I'm told Billy's desperate to get Tom Dearden in there to...
See, you know what? I would have, if he was going to make that call, I reckon he should have done it one game ago. He should have done it for the series,
Yeah.
He's going to drop the captain.
Yeah, but that's
pretty. I think that's
a
big call.
I
that's a big call.
And this is the state that have bagged us forever for chopping and changing and not showing any loyalty.
I tell you, I'm going to bag.
Yeah, who's your chump? Are you going to start with your chump?
Yeah.
Okay.
The idiots doing the run it straight challenge at the back of the Brookvale Oval Hill. How ridiculous.
I'd love to do it. What do you call it? A run and chase?
Run it straight challenge. Have you not seen this?
Yeah, I have.
I'd love to do
it. I'd love to do it with you.
You know what? I'll let you run at me 3 times.
Oh,
you would just bounce off. Do you want to do it now?
Yeah,
come on. Let's do it out here.
Get outside on Darlinghurst Road.
Let's get on Darlinghurst Road. It won't be the weirdest thing they'll see today. I can guarantee that. I thought it was ridiculous. a kid died in New Zealand doing it recently. I think Nathan Brown, the Manly player, was really good in his media yesterday when he said, "Leave it to the professionals."
Yeah, and Fox Sports did it with one of their producers of the Matty John
on the
show.
Matty
Did
John
you
show.
see that?
I did see that.
When
and
Oliver Kawadu took him out.
Yeah, I've sort of changed my mind on it. I think it's irresponsible.
Yeah, but
I must be getting old.
it's become one of those social media phases, hasn't it? People just want to do it.
It's huge.
And anyone with 6, 7, 8, 9 schooners under the belt want to try these things, you know?
What about the gibberish going down the hill?
But you see the
you'd hardly
size
get a
of-
run up.
See the site in the fair dinkum department, I'd shit myself. I really would.
Well, you're getting that old.
That's a very,
you get that
very-
old. You get that old. You just do that after a
That's
couple
a
of
ve-
beers anyway, don't you?
Yes. But that's a very responsible comment, Andrew.
It is.
You know what I do when I
I'm
get pissed these days? The most violent I get is I challenge people to arm wrestles. And I've been in the gym because Pete the Greek, my 78-year-old mate in Cronulla, beat me in an arm wrestle. So
Yeah, look at you. You're huge.
But
Who's your champ?
my champ,
Mr.
my
Universe.
champ, and I really want to talk about the Canberra Raiders.
Oh, how good are they going? They're so
Won
good to
more
watch.
games than any other side in this comp. They because Canterbury have had 2 byes. The Raiders haven't had a bye. They've been to Townsville, they've been to Vegas, New Zealand, Darwin. And what I love about this football side is they've never heard of 5 hit-ups, occasional shift, 5th tackle kick to a corner. Ricky will not shackle this side. They're just so adventurous, these young players. They've got a structure, but they've got a licence to play natural, instinct, heads-up footy. And some of their comeback tries this year have been so spectacular, Webby.
Mm.
And I sit at home and I start the week, when are the Raiders playing?
I'm the same. They're my favourite team to watch. And by the way,
But don't you like the style?
Oh, because that's it. It's not it's ad hoc football.
Yes.
You know. But I sense that Ricky really enjoyed beating the Roosters last week. I don't know. I just a vague feeling I got.
Everyone.
I know he does. Do you know?
I rang him on the way home. He was in the car. I said, how many beers you had? And he wasn't even halfway to goal when he'd had 8 or something.
God. That stuns me. So my champ, this is a bit weird, this one. I was talking to an old colleague of mine on the phone last night. I can't say her name, but she's now a teacher who teaches year 7 students who struggle with reading and writing. And she can't get them, she couldn't get them to engage properly. So you know how she does?
Right.
By talking about rugby league.
Is that right?
That's the way that she manages to teach literacy skills to these year 7 students. They talk about State of Origin, Nathan Cleary, and they also read from a rugby league player's autobiography, Jonathan Thurston's.
Oh, fair dinkum.
Yeah.
That's Phelpsy, wasn't it? The great Phelpsy.
That's it.
Wow.
I thought, and they sit there and they read from the book. Yeah. So rugby league,
Isn't
is there
it-
anything you can't do?
Yeah, wow.
Teaching kids how to read and write.
Isn't that outstanding?
It is. I'll tell
Mate,
you,
the game is flying. And I know you've had your I know you've had your issues and you've been critical of but the game's going good.
I'm critical of
Administration and certain things.
Yeah.
So have I been.
yeah, but I don't think you can lay the thanks for how the game's been played on the field to Peter V'landys and Andrew Abdo. It's the clubs and the players and the coaches.
Yeah,
They're the ones who deserve all the credit.
It's a combination of everyone, in my view.
Righto. Well, let's get to
Sorry. I'm not going to say it.
what?
So I
Say it.
have an opinion.
Good. I'm sure you'll have one. Well, this one is an opinion. This is news. You heard it here first, Buzz. Tell us what you've got.
Well, I'm told Mal Meninga, this is not the news, but is 48 hours off accepting the job as North Bears, Perth.
Perth Bears.
Yeah. Part of that deal is the commission, independent commission, will insist he stands down as the Kangaroos coach. And he's very, very reluctant to do that, as you would understand the passion he has for that green and gold jersey. But the shock is the man to replace him. And I have it on very good authority that man will be Bradley Fittler. And
Wow.
yeah. And I find this a stunning appointment in that Wayne Bennett has told all the right people that he would be prepared to coach the side. And Wayne's coached New Zealand, Wayne's coached Australia, Wayne's coached Queensland and won 7 titles. However, the Commission insists they do not want anyone with club ties or state ties, which pulls Laurie Daly and Billy Slater out of contention for the job. And this dates way back to Terry Fernley.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when he dropped 6 Queenslanders and brought in all the news. So it basically left 2 men standing. Cameron Smith, who spoke on 100% footy and said yes, he'd be prepared to do the job. He's played 56 tests, and Freddie. Freddie has the edge in that he has coached before. And while he was wound up in his job with the New South Wales Blues, he didn't do too bad a job. He could have kept that job, but he wasn't happy with the scenario of only working 4 months a year and taking a substantial hit. So that's what I'm told, mate. Freddie hasn't been approached yet, but knowing Freddie, not close, I think it's a challenge he would jump at. And
of course it is. Of course it is. He's to coach Australia, and he's former captain and a great Kangaroos player over the years. I'd prefer Bennett. I've said this in the last few days. I'd prefer Bennett with Cameron Smith as an assistant, particularly for a big Kangaroo tour at the end of the year, and then Cameron to take over just to get that coaching experience. But I don't hate it. I think
they want arm's length, though, Webby, from clubs.
No, I get that. I understand. But, I think Wayne could rise above that, really. I love that he'd have his stature, particularly with it being a Kangaroo Tour World Cup next year. I'm not surprised Freddie's in the frame to likely get it because he's on the NRL payroll now. The only apprehension I have is that he really struggles with scrutiny. And in the last couple of series as New South Wales coach, he really became unhinged with the criticism that came his way, which is only natural when you lose 2 series in a row. You know, I was critical of New South Wales after they lost, the first game in 23. Brad and I had an incredible relationship, and I was critical about the Pangai Junior selection. We've basically never spoken again. He
really?
It was very icy at the footy show.
I'm not even sure if we're talking.
The last couple of years. When you coach Australia, you're coaching a team that's expected to win every single time, and there's a level of scrutiny there that's, even as much as coaching at Origin level. I think one of the main things that needs to be said is that he'd lost the faith of the Blues playing group there in that last series. He was told in no uncertain terms that he needed to make some changes to his coaching staff after they lost in 22, and he didn't, and he lost the support of some of his players in that series, and you can see that. You could have seen that with the way that they play.
I was going to mention that if he is to take on this assignment, and this is no reflection on Greg Alexander whatsoever, but Brandy's now a director at Penrith and a TV commentator. I think you need people like Laurie surround himself. And Laurie learnt the hard way. He now has Matt King at his side. He's got Dean Young helping him out, 2 very, very good club assistants. And I think Freddie would need a scenario like that if he's to make success. Very, very important tour, this one, Webby.
100%. This may change. This might age poorly, this comment. I'm not entirely sure Mal's over the line with the Perth Bears. Not entirely sure that it's a done deal.
Mal wants to coach the Perth Bears, but giving up what he's doing in highly paid jobs at Fox with the Kangaroos, I understand he's on a commercial deal with the Canberra Raiders and a few other personal endorsements. That's up to a significant amount of money. And to go over there and launch Perth, it's more than a coaching job. It's selling the game, that massive figure that Mal is, to a new audience. And he expects to be paid accordingly.
It's also a big job too, Buzz.
It is.
I think this is what worries me about the Perth Bears, is that in 5 months' time, they need to start contracting players. They need to start.
That's why they're insisting he does not coach Australia.
I get it. But I mean, I'm not talking about whether the conflict there. I'm talking about the enormity of the job of going and coaching the Bears. They don't even have a board in place.
No.
You know, but I mean, it's.
I'm sure that's part of the discussion, though, the team, Mal, and who's going to be the general manager of football, who's going to be the Frank Panisi, who's going to be the Gus Gould there, who's going to be his assistants, what sort of money's available. Last time Mal coached in Origin, he had Neil Henry and Michael Hagan, who people said did more coaching than Mal, and Mal was a figurehead.
But also the last time he coached Canberra, he had moderate success at best.
Yes.
I'm a little bit worried about the Perth Bears. I think the runway into the competition in 27 is very short for what they have to put in place.
I'm more worried about PNG in 28.
Well, as we said on this podcast a few weeks ago, I think that it'll get put back. But I'm very Perth are the next cab off the rank, and I just think they've got a hell of a lot to do. Redcliffe had a short runway, but they had decades of history, a big leagues club, and a lot of football talent. And they also had Wayne Bennett, who is arguably the best club coach of all time. So it's going to be an interesting
Bennett didn't
time.
do a great. Remember, Bennett came back from that tour of England when Joey and all those guys. It was a long, long time ago, and it didn't work out that time.
05.
Yeah, 05. I remember I did a back page. I was sports editor at the time. I called him Backdoor Benny because he arrived home at Brisbane Airport.
Oh, he did the runner around.
And he took out the back door because he was so well connected in Brisbane. They let him out where the rock stars normally go. So I ran a map of Brisbane Airport on the back page and
the little dot.
Yeah, how you got.
You're so nasty.
No, but
good tabloid journalism, Buzz.
Yeah, well, you know.
I know, but I do. I just think
he's coached England, New Zealand, Queen. I would have thought he was an obvious choice.
Yeah,
and he's not going to. And they worry about the club affiliation. He's not going to pick Cody Walker. He'd take Campbell Graham. He'd take Latrell. He'd take Cam Murray if he's fit. And that's about it. And Kean Kalamatangi.
That's right.
You know, there's 4 standouts there.
That's right. Anyway, stay tuned, as they say.
Yes. Freddie Fittler, the coach.
You heard it here first.
Kangaroos.
You heard it here first, unless, of course, it didn't happen. News of the week. Broncos in... Where's the crisis stamp? Let's get the crisis stamp out. Broncos in crisis.
Yeah. Well, they are in crisis, Webby, aren't they?
Well, they lost 34-6 to Manly, excuse me, which sees them sitting at 11th on the ladder. Questions raised about Michael Maguire losing the dressing room in his first season. Can I quote our great mate Peter Bomber Bedell in the Courier Mail?
Hang your heads in shame.
This is one of the great lines. This wasn't just any loss. This was a searing spotlight into the soul of the Broncos playing group that lacks intent, cohesion, and any semblance of the team spirit that wins premierships.
Well, there you go.
Sneaky Pete.
He's been into your book of
gibber.
Book of good lines.
He's a searing spotlight into the soul. My Siri just went off then when I said that.
Oh, really?
Siri,
did it come back bombshell revelation?
Siri, should Michael Maguire keep coaching the Broncos? Said no.
Why don't we put that in the chat?
Chat GP.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? Maybe AI can coach the Broncos because I don't think anyone else can. What do you think, Buzz?
Oh, they're a football team not playing for their coach. I know that. They've lost 6 of their last 7 games. And I used the example on Monday, the West Tigers were in a similar position against the Cowboys in the game before. They piled on, they got beat a try, and because they're playing for Benji. They showed passion, they showed hunger, they didn't want an embarrassing scoreboard. And the Broncos have got a better roster than the West Tigers by length of a footy field, Webby.
Yeah.
And I don't know what's going on. I'm not smart enough to work it out, but I just hear there's some unhappy footballers in the organisation.
There was always going to be a culture adjustment with Madge there. That's the way his intensity is. He's renowned for it.
How long do they take?
Well, that's
culture
the thing.
Adjustments.
That's right. That's right. And it's and look, but I think everyone's going, who's to blame? Surely it's both parties, the playing group and Madge. To be fair, I don't think Madge can just go, well, they're all soft, harden up. That's you can't do that. But I also think, this is the 3rd coach in a row that the Broncos have had and the players have allegedly not been happy with.
Yeah, but I'll pull you up there. This is the 3rd club in a row where Madge is having worn them out and having issues getting through because, in my view, he's still coaching old school. And I think he did drive them too hard in the off-season. I'm on record of saying that. And it's all, they wear those Gucci bags and designer shoes and,
old Gucci bags.
Yeah, and people were saying, he had to knock the rock star lifestyle out of Reece Walsh and all those fellas. But there's a certain way that you manage football players, and what Madge did, I don't think has necessarily worked. He's a really, really intense dude.
Yeah.
And it doesn't always get through, particularly, that West Tigers and wandering around swinging a baseball bat and,
I think that works. That works. And look, I don't say this.
Oh, mate, Tales of Tiger Town, you saw it. We all saw it firsthand.
Yeah, it was gibber.
It was over the top.
But I don't know why they ever agreed to that.
Of course they shouldn't.
I know. Well,
it was good TV.
It's good TV, but it's not necessarily great if you're a coach of an NRL team.
But
the thing is, the point I'd make, and I just say this as someone who's written books about coaches, and I look at Wayne obviously, if you're gonna drive those sort of standards with your players, you need to get their trust first. And it just doesn't feel like Madge has that.
No.
But then again, as I said, like if it's not Madge, then who is going to get these players all on the same page?
But I've said, and I said it from the outset, with Madge's history in the last 10 years, he's a really, really good Origin coach, and he's a really, really good Kiwi coach. And he beat Australia 30-0, but he had a 6-week campaign. He had a 6-week campaign with the Origin boys. And he's terrific. He gets elite players in there. He doesn't have to flog them. He comes up with his assistants on a game plan, a strategy, and off you go. It's so different managing 30 egos from 24/7 over an off-season in the Brisbane heat, army camps and vomit buckets. And see, I look at it this way, and he wouldn't listen to him when we had the blue on the phone. I told him I've studied what NFL and the EPL, and there's all these bans on how hard you. Someone like Reece Walsh is like a good sports car. You fine-tune them. You don't flog them.
Yeah.
They're my views, mate.
I get that. I get that.
And I speak to a lot of physios and a lot of, who play such a key role and high-performance dudes. And there's a way you prepare for it. But
sure, but Buzz, I watch, like, the NFL, they have a pre-season doco called Hard Knocks. They train hard. They
can't do contact.
I know, I get that.
There's no contact at all.
They have some contact. Yes, they do.
They
do have contact. They wear helmets. They are limited in how much contact they have. Yeah. They're trying to bring down the AFL and the NRL.
The first month you can't do longer than a 4-hour day.
Sure, I get that. But they do train hard. You can't. And I've talked to Nathan Cleary about this in rugby league. You can't train for a contact sport by not doing any contact in your preseason.
Yeah, but the thing is, the difference in the two games with the NFL is when you say they train hard, theirs isn't an endurance game as much as rugby league is. In that our guys are on the field for 80 minutes, theirs aren't. They're not.
What? I know.
Well, that's where they're different. And you say,
I know the difference between the games.
Well, I'm just giving you a bit of coaching.
I thank you. I may.
What's your next topic? You're talking gibber, and I'm so glad you've turned.
What are you talking? What do you mean you're talking? What do you mean talking gibber? You're explaining the difference between NFL and rugby league to me.
Well, I'm
Thanks,
sorry that I've gone to the trouble of actually researching it with prominent people.
You know what? I'm going to have some contact in a minute with you.
Are you?
Yeah.
What's that game called?
Run it straight.
What was your chump? What game's it called?
Run it straight.
Run it straight. I would dead set take you high and knock those glass. Everything.
Okay. Nathan Cleary. Don't start laughing because then I can't stop laughing.
Righto. Nathan Cleary.
God, Nathan Cleary.
This
what are we going to say
all
about him?
Bullshit.
Yeah, That's right. So Nathan Cleary to Union has been floated
by Tim Horan.
Tim Horan and Morgan Tiranui, and they were so adamant about it. So I got onto it for The Australian, for whom I write.
Why would you bother?
And I wanted it. You know why? Because no one had actually called Penrith or asked Ivan Cleary or George Mimas. No one had been denied it. So I spoke to George Mimas and Ivan Cleary, and Ivan had spoken, Tommy had spoken to Nathan, and they both said there's absolute bullshit. Nathan had said to Ivan, there's nothing in it. Ivan said to me he's been getting text messages and calls about this sort of stuff, about Nathan leaving for about 6 months. I spoke to Mimas. He said he hasn't had a discussion with any rugby union club anywhere in the world.
And this is how ridiculous. Before we walked on this podcast, I got a text message from someone you'd normally listen to. He said, "Oh, mate, be careful. Mightn't be the Wallabies. It'll be French rugby or English rugby. You'll get over there. Mary's struggling."
So this is why I want to say this, right? This is why I want to bring it up today. People that are saying that clearly have no idea what Nathan Cleary is about.
No.
They clearly don't understand what a competitor he is and what a professional he is. He's not going to go and bank a check in French rugby, which is basically a part-time comp in comparison to rugby league. Everyone keeps thinking he's going to want to go and be closer to Mary Fowler. So he's been linked to the Super League, to Perth, now to French rugby, European rugby. It's all bullshit. That said, though, if I'm Phil Waugh, I'm having a crack to get him. He'd brain it. He'd be the perfect convert. And he could be for them what Andrew Johns didn't get to be in 2004. Do you remember that story, Buzz?
Yeah. Yeah, I do. But the story here is, Webby, rugby are in a world of pain financially. And they're going to make a lot of money to pay back debt from this
the British Lions.
Yeah.
And Irish Lions
and
too.
then a World Cup.
Yeah.
They're losing too many of their good kids to rugby league. They're in the GPS and CAS schools now, NRL scouts. So on top of Swalihi paying Cleary ridiculous money, I don't think is a smart thing to do.
I do.
Why?
I just think it's a. You look at how much publicity Joseph has generated for that code, like more than any other player. No one's talking about outside of rugby union circles, any other player other than Joseph Swalihi.
Can you name 3 Waratahs outside of him?
Yeah.
No, well, that's right.
Jack Grant, son of James Grant. There's one.
Tommy Wright.
Tommy Wright. And
their best player retired, the lock forward. What's it? Hooper.
Michael Hooper, he retired. He retired a while ago.
Good player. I'd love to have seen him play league.
Anyway, so Nathan Cleary, he's not going to. How dare you shoot down my yarn?
No, I just don't know why we're talking about a non-event, that's all.
Oh, you know what? You can do the fucking news list next week. How's that sound?
Don't get the shits.
It's not a non-event, but it's an interesting story.
Yeah, we've turned Tim Horan into a source, No,
we're shooting down his story.
Yeah. Like, is he going to dominate the news cycle every time he opens his trap?
All right, we'll just go with your stories next time. No worries. Fine, good as gold.
Yeah, no.
I hope. I'm going to show the same amount of enthusiasm for your yarns, your Madge Maguire hatchet stories.
Yes, okay.
As you have for my
Tim
Horan hatchet story.
I know it's a long shift, but don't, because we've done Brave, but just roll on. Roll on. Turn the aircon on. Cool down, Andrew.
Buzz, do you know what a nose beer is?
Yeah, I do.
What is it?
Cocaine.
Sniffing cocaine.
I read your story. I didn't until I read your story.
Oh, good. Thanks for reading it. You're going to shoot that one down as well?
No, has that been around, nose beer, for a while? Like, is that a term that's...
It is.
Is it?
Nose nachos. Nose Negronis.
You used a couple of big words I struggled with in that column, but it was a very good column.
Thank you. So the Western Bulldogs player Bailey Smith has got into hot water last week about he was asked on Instagram by a punter whether he was going to get on the nose beers after a win. And he said no, maybe at the end of the season.
Yeah, right.
He got slapped on the wrist by the by the AFL. It started a big debate in the AFL. And
Did he
particularly
delete the post when they?
He ended up doing it, yeah, but he didn't get sanctioned. And this is a guy who a few years ago had snapped a photo of himself holding a bag of a white substance.
Val Holmes.
Very much Val Holmes like on Instagram, and he assuming he got one strike, but he did get fined. So, we probably got if he got a strike, he would have got fined. But that's confidential. Do you think there's a problem with recreational substances in the major football codes?
Well, I think there is, and you wrote about it. The Rugby League poll, the agents, they asked the question. The NRL didn't like the question, but 65% said it's a problem. So if the people who look after these football players say it's a problem, it is a problem. There are a couple of problems in rugby league, gambling and drugs, obviously. And it's not just a rugby league problem. As we all know, it's a society problem. And there's widespread use, particularly among, affluent people who can afford it.
Particularly cashed up young footballers.
Yeah. It's
See, I'm not as outraged by it as a lot of people. I'm sort of probably a bit more aware of how widespread it is in the community. I mean, I live in the eastern suburbs of Sydney. Yeah. It's pretty prevalent. But I mean, it's a hard one.
What did the AFL say, mate? Did they?
They said they were disappointed on it and they wanted the club to have a yarn to him. It was a pretty weak response. They're much different to league. So in AFL they have a 3 strikes policy where you're not named and shamed the first time, and then it sort of rashes up after that. In the NRL, it's only 2 strikes.
Right.
You get done the second time, and the club has the ability to terminate your contract. I think that's a bit too hard, but I don't banning
cocaine use used to be a 2-year suspension.
If you get. Well, no.
It was.
No. You're right, but only if you got tested by WADA or a SADA, or now Sports Integrity Australia, on game day, because it was seen as a stimulant. But
it used to be. Then they changed the rules, Webby. If you had cocaine in your system, it was a 2-year ban.
It is, and it still is, Buzz. It
still
still is. But if it's game day, but if you can argue that it was for recreational use and not to boost your performance, that's when you get the reduction in the ban. Right. But these type of testing where the NRL and the AFL or union or whatever do testing outside of the WADA testers, that's where these strikes come from.
Goose this fella for putting it up there. Not the most intelligent thing to do. Scandal meter, probably a 7, but 6.
I think the lesson here for everyone out there is if you're going to do nose beers, just don't put it on social media. Yeah. That's the big no-no. So if you do any nose beers this weekend, Buzz, I don't want to see it on your Instagram page.
I had one experience in my life. When I was 17 years of age, I tried marijuana. It was passed around a party at a bong. And, mate, it spun me out for 2 weeks, and I've never, ever touched it since.
2 weeks?
That's my history. I don't know where the weed came from.
2 weeks?
I swear to you, I've never touched it since.
That's good gear.
Yeah, mate, that was probably 50 years ago. So, yeah.
Oh, God, I wish I had a photo of you sucking down a Orchie bottle. Even to hear you talk about it, it's making me sweat thinking about it.
That was my one experience, and I'm glad it was a bad one because I've never had reason to go anywhere near it since.
Yeah, look, I've never gone near
I'm on every other drug you can get in a chemist because of my heart and blood issues. I walk into a chemist with my scripts and just say, give me the lot. I rattle with all the pills I'm on.
Oh,
but, yeah.
Reminds me when I was in Brazil once. The woman at the woman at the hotel goes, anything from the minibar? I said, all of it. Righto, let's get to war stories.
Oh, you're a shocker, Webby.
Right,
could I write your life story one day?
You couldn't handle it, Buzz.
Mate, I would love to write your book.
Good luck. Good luck.
Righto,
your war stories.
All right.
See, I don't know why you and Peter Sterling never got on. I always got on great with Sterlo. Why did you not? What happened? Tell us about the time you successfully sued Peter Sterling, one of the great ornaments of the game.
I'll have to be quick background. In 1983, after they'd won their 3rd title, I found out that Ken Arthurson tried to sign him, right? Was trying to pinch him from Para. And Arco had the biggest checkbook to sign anyone. Rang Dennis Fitzgerald, I'm going to ride it. That he said, please don't ride it. Arco's got such an ego. If he goes public, he'll offer more and he'll need to win. So I said to Fitz, I won't ride it, but I'll keep checking. When he says he'll stay, I said, well, I'll keep checking and be my exclusive when he stays. So kept ringing. 6 weeks later, Dennis Fitzgerald said, Webby, yeah, you're right. He's signing. He's staying. And I had the story. Manly's failed $500,000 bid. He said, no, you can't ride it. I said, Fitzy, I dropped off you. I had a deal with it. He said, you can't ride it. His manager wants him to break the story in the Daily Mirror with his column. So I said, I can't respect that. And I just wrote it, back page, double page spread inside. Sterlo's richest deal ever, how he knocked back Arco, all this. Sterlo rang me at home the next day, called me every name, every F-bomb. So we didn't really speak until after, Anyway, in the 80s on the footy show, Blocker Roach rang me up and said, I'm sick of dressing up in drag. They're making me put skirts on, dresses on, all this shit. He said, I'm going to pull the pin. I've told the producers. So the lead to my column was a picture of Blocker with a dress on, saying, I will never do this again. I'm sick of it. Quoting him, he wanted to go public. So they held my story up on the footy show the following Thursday night. Sterlo said, we have a first. Blocker's confirmed Phil Rothfield's actually got a story right. He has no credibility. I've had my issues and just ripped and tear.
Oh, my God.
So I've given out a lot and I've, so I'm not, I expect to cop a few back. This was very, very heavy and I get to work and Roy Middle, the editor, comes in. He says, I've instructed our lawyers to sue on your behalf for the damage it's caused the chief rugby league writer of my paper and, your credibility. Sterling was highly thought of in the game. So we sued. They settled straight out of court. And
what was the money?
I can't say what the money
Why
was.
not?
It was enough to buy a little tinny and put a 14 horsepower Evinrude on the back. And I called the boat Sterlo.
How good.
Yeah. And the last time I saw Sterlo, I was up at Avoca on holidays and I had to come into Sydney I'd just packed the holidays for a farewell. So I went to Country Road at Erina to buy a shirt and I just tried it on in the change. And as I walk out, there's Sterlo, the country. And he just gave me the best spray. I said, look, Sterlo, we're in Country Road, not Target. Mate, he said, down to, he said, outside to the car park.
Let's go down to Big W and get into it.
So I didn't know what to do. And this poor sales girl, she didn't know what was happening,
Oh, my God.
So I basically said, piss off. And I took my XL shirt, paid for it, and went to my party.
And that got out, that story.
Sorry?
That story got out.
Yeah.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
How many times have you been sued?
Oh, many times.
Successfully?
I've lost a couple, but I've got, I've got a pretty good strike rate. But
I'm-
you're not
I'm-
doing your job. I used to think when I was writing What's the Buzz back in the day, I haven't done my job if I haven't had some sort of legal complaint on a Monday morning.
That's right.
I've
I've only been sued once.
By whom?
By,
Did they win?
yeah, I was at the
Oh, you
telly.
got beat.
It's the only time. Oh, no, the Telegraph lawyers settled before I could even say anything. With Dave Perry, the Manly CEO.
You lost to Dave Perry.
I know. But one
What
of the
did you
best.
write?
Oh,
Well, you better not defame him a second
well, I'm not
time.
going to. Yeah, let's
No, don't.
abort. Anyway, let's just say I wasn't very happy that they'd settled.
Do we have defamation insurance?
But you know the one of the best lines I had from a lawyer was when I was at the Sun Herald, and I wrote about when Matt Orford went from the Storm to Manly.
Mm.
And I won't say the lawyer's name, but I wrote the story about how I basically wrote that how much Manly had paid him and all the side deals and everything. And before we went before we went to press, I remember sitting in the lawyer's office with the sports editor. I'm not going to say the lawyer's name. And I was young and I was shitting myself about getting sued. And he goes, I said, we're going to get sued. And he goes, look, they'll probably sue, but we haven't had a good legal stoush for a while, so let's do it.
Yeah, right.
Nothing ever happened.
Really?
Yeah. I've been threatened. Your mate Lee Hadjipantelis threatened many times with legal letters.
Oh, he's not a bad fella, Lee Hadjipantelis.
Particularly when he's paying for your lunch.
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
Fearless forecast. What do you got, Buzz? What are you predicting? For the fans out there, the millions of people who listen to Off the Record.
I think I'm going to predict that the pressure, now the focus is off Lachlan Galvin, who is your free zone. And because the Broncos have soaked up so much publicity, my forecast is that the pressure is about to build on Benji Marshall. That the West Tigers have lost 3 straight, 64-0 to Storm, lost to South, lost to Cowboys. I think they're playing for Benji. They fought back so strong. I think he's got the backing of the playing group, Webby.
I think he does too, but the results aren't there.
They've won 5 games, so they're going a hell of a lot better than last year. But I think they're a watch this space story for the run home.
I think this is his second. I think you're spot on. This is his second year. Second year with Richo in the role, Shane Richardson, the CEO, and I think it's going to be interesting. Like in the second half of the season,
I actually hope, and you know what, with your man gone, at least you know they've got 17 men each and every week committed to that jersey. Whenever they run onto that football park, there's 17 boys who want to be there. You
got to say this, Ben. If there's an asterisk, it's like not many coaches have had to deal with that.
No.
Like he has the first part of this season.
Mate,
That's a lot to coach through.
Cheering him because I think he's a classy fella.
I like Benji too. Do you want to know what my fearless forecast is? I'm into the NBA finals. I love him.
Oh really?
Oh yeah, it's good.
Who's playing?
Well, Oklahoma City Thunder and Indiana Pacers are in the finals.
You're punting on this series? Or?
Well, yes. So I still think the Thunder will sweep them. So that's 360 for a result in 4 games. So 4 games, 360 get on the OKC Thunder. Mate? I can't pronounce his name.
Oh, right.
SGA.
Yeah,
that's
right.
it. They're his initials. That's how they pronounce it.
Do they have a fantasy league and all that stuff?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Every
Do you play all that?
I used to be in an NFL fantasy league.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I won my comp and then I pulled out of it.
Yeah,
I'm right in the NFL. That's more my sport.
What's your team?
Oh, I jumped on New Orleans.
I covered the Super Bowl there, you know.
No, I jumped on New Orleans and at the moment I got on board, they started to go shit.
Yeah, wow.
Like every team I support in my godforsaken life.
Great stadium, mate. Used to be the Mercedes Dome.
The Superdome?
Yeah. There was a blackout the year I was there. It was the 49ers versus Baltimore.
I've been lucky. I've done 3 Super Bowls.
Have you?
Greatest
competition. I've done 2 Super Bowls. Then I went all the way to San Francisco, Levi Stadium, to watch Jarrett Hayne play.
Yeah.
And they dropped him the day I arrived. Longest trip ever.
Well, one of the first Super Bowl I covered was there at Levi Stadium.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Spent a month there one night.
Did you?
Yeah, I did. Anyway, that's enough off the record. We're sick of sitting here gibbering away. Thanks so much for listening, guys. I hope your ears aren't bleeding. See you next week.
Love your journalism, Andrew.
Thank you, Philip.
See you.